And welcome to Capital Talk, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya. And now, more than ever, I'm Jeff Koinange. Now, all this week we've been telling you we want to sit on the bench with what we call the radicals. People who refuse to conform to the everyday or to what everyone else was saying. They chose their own paths, the road less traveled, and they were consistent all the way. Like my guest today, imagine a man serving 13 years in detention, 4 under President Kenyatta, 9 under President Moi. In the end, he managed to escape and head to Norway, but I tell you, this man suffered. There's a book he wrote, in fact, which you have to pick up because this is a must-read if you want to know about Kenya's pre- and post-colonial history. It's called I Refuse to Die. And that's exactly what he did because he was in and out of detention so many times, he even forgot the number. Can you imagine? All he knew was that he refused to die. In fact, he grew some dreadlocks while he was in exile, and he says he would not cut them off until President Moi was finally out of office. And he kept his word and cut them off after that. He was elected member of parliament for Subukia in 2002. 2007, he wasn't re-elected. Right now, I tell you, he says, we need a revolution. That's the bottom line. Because the way we are going, it seems like one step forward, many, many steps backwards. This man speaks from the heart. He fears nobody. No doubt a radical who is part of Kenya's post-colonial history. He is none other than the revolutionary himself in a land of few revolutionaries. Koigi. Wamwere.
Fine, Jeff.
Meshmua,
yes.
welcome to the bench. It's been a while since you came on the bench.
I agree.
A lot has been happening, especially in the last few weeks. And the last couple, I guess 24 hours or so, when the vice chair of the TJRC, Betty Murungi, decided to, you know what, I'm going to resign as vice chair because there's too much baggage here. It's getting ugly. This thing will never get off the ground. Was it a good move?
Yes, because it was an admission of something that we have been saying, but which I must say that even Betty would not concede before, that indeed Kiplagat was not the right man for the chair of the TJRC. But we have gone beyond that. Now we are saying that the entire team was badly constituted. We have issues with each and every commissioner. We think they should all resign. And Murungi should not only have resigned as vice chair of the TJRC, she should also have resigned as a commissioner. All of them should resign and let us have the TJRC set up again and have the commission filled with the right people.
Yeah. Why do you think Kiplagat is holding on like this? Because any other president, this is a diplomat's diplomat, so we would have thought he would have been the perfect gentleman. Step aside, walk away. Now it's getting uglier and uglier, and he's still holding on.
Well, you say that people thought that he was a perfect gentleman. This man has never been a gentleman. This man was a functionary of Moi's dictatorship for many, many years. And when he refuses to budge from the commission, I see him acting the same part that he acted as a functionary and a very important person in the regime of dictator Moi. He is one of those people who used to tell Moi not to budge, despite the people's and the world's demands for change. So when he behaves the way he does, he's acting very natural. He's just being himself. And remember that Kiplagat, even if he wanted to change today, he might find it very difficult because he was put there by this government in order to do a cover-up job, to protect certain people. And I believe that Kiplagat's brief in the TJRC is to make sure that the sins of the British government remain concealed, that the sins of the Kenyatta government remain concealed, that the sins of Moi's government remained concealed, that the sins of the Kibaki government also remain sealed. That is not an easy brief. It's not something that he can just decide to quit. He might even be killed for it. So he must hang on until those people who put him there tell him Maybe now it is impossible for you to stay, move on, we bring in someone else who may not be as exposed as you are. But I think that is his predicament.
But as Malcolm X once said, the chickens have come home to roost. I guess Kenya is a changed place where people can speak out, can speak up.
Yes, absolutely. But we must realize that it is not everybody that is able to speak up. This country has known a lot of extrajudicial executions. There are a lot of people who have been killed for speaking up. There are a lot of people who have been killed for belonging to an organization called Mungeki. I have always said that I'm not Mungeki, but I will defend their right to organize and their right to speak for as long as I live. Because this is the kind of, these are the freedoms and the democratic rights that we fought for. To the extent that only people of a certain class, the middle class and the upper class are able to speak, does not mean that we have, that the freedom of speech has been fully restored. There are many, many, many people whose voice is hardly heard.
Let me ask you this. You write in your book, I refuse to die. So how come you haven't been silenced? Because you have been a thorn in the side of President Kenyatta's government, President Moi's, President Kibaki's. They must see you and cringe. How come you haven't been silenced?
Because, you know, I realized from very early that without any fear, there is no life. You remember the story of Julius Caesar and how he said that if you are a coward, you die many times before your death. I have been through situations that actually demonstrated to me the truth of that statement, that if you allow fear to take over your life, you die. And of course, as long as I am breathing, I suppose I am meant to live. And I can't live without being able to speak. Remember that I was also given a name that means speaking. The moment I will stop speaking, I will no longer be fit to be called Koigi. So I refusing to die. You refuse to die by being able to speak all the time. The moment I feel that I cannot speak, I will be ready to die.
Can this TJRC does it still have a life, or will it have to be completely reconstituted with fresh faces, fresh perspective, fresh everything?
You see, TJRC to me is a very important commission, probably the most important of them all. It is the commission that is supposed to give us the true history of our country. It is the one commission that should attempt to give the victims of dictatorship some justice, maybe not all, but some justice. And if you have a TJRC that fails to accomplish its purposes, it will have been a terribly wasted opportunity. Sometimes I think that if we reconstitute this TJRC, that it might be able to deliver. It might be able to give people a forum to tell the story of this country from before 1963. Because currently, the way the TJRC is set, it is only supposed to investigate atrocities and injustices of the period between 1963 and 2008. I think this is a wrong limitation of the time that needs to be investigated by the TJRC. We should go down to the times before, up to the time that the colonialists came and took over this country. Now, if you ask most people whether there is much difference between Kibaki's government and Moi's government, they'll tell you that in fact there is no difference. If anything, Kibaki's government could be worse than Moi's government. We need to be able to see more clearly and understand that though we wanted this TJRC to be, probably we need more fundamental change before we can ask for this TJRC. Right now, I almost think that it is stillborn. And that is why people like Njoya could not be appointed into the commission by President Kibaki.
What about yourself?
If they will not accept Njoya, you can imagine how far less they would be willing to have me in the same commission. But I truly don't even want to be in that commission. I understand my position in our history, right, that I belong to one extreme end of that history. And the people I believe should be investigated, the perpetrators of dictatorship, also belong to the other end of the same. I think we need people in the middle.
Are there people like that, Mheshimiwa? Because, you know, let he who is without a skeleton in his closet come out. Is there anyone who would fit this mold?
I think yes, even in the people in South Africa, the ones who are in the commission, they were not entirely angels, they were not saints, they had their weaknesses. But if somebody cannot be accused of having been one of the pillars of dictatorship, such a people may qualify. And if we know that they have integrity, that they are honest, that they are not bootlickers or sycophants who will be told what to allow be said because they are covering up for someone else, such a people, we should be able to have them. You know, people like Ngoge wa Thiong'o, if you ask me, Shadrach Guto, Meshere Mugo, at least they could represent our side of history. And probably we could have also people who are in the system, maybe in the periphery of the system. They were not exactly one of the worst people. We know people who occasionally would stand up and say, this is not right, although they were part of the system. But we do not want people, some of those who are at the center of dictatorship, to be the one sitting in the chair of that commission. That is ridiculous. It is just as, I mean, we could as well ask Moi to be the chair of the TJRC if we are going to have Kiplagat.
God forbid. Mheshimiwa, I want to talk more about that because that's fascinating stuff. But also, we haven't touched on the Constitution. The debate is still going on. Where are we going with this thing? And also, Ocampo, ICC is ruling on Wednesday whether to go ahead with a case against Kenya. Where do you see us going after the break? He refuses to die. He refuses to shut up. This man speaks out, speaks up for those who cannot speak for themselves. He is the voice of the voiceless, a radical if you want. But I tell you, he's been consistent for the last 30 years, despite 13 years in detention. Whoa! It is heavy, it's powerful. Hope you're sitting back because there's plenty more coming back after the break. Back in a moment. And welcome back to Capital Talk. Are you sitting back? Because the man who refuses to die is on the bench. Koigi Wamwere. If you get a chance, pick up this book. It's a fantastic read, and it just tells us how far we've come as a nation and also how far we need to go. This man was detained for 13 years, suffered under the brutal regimes of both President Kenyatta and President Moi. And he says this government, this administration right now is no better. He speaks from the heart. He speaks for thousands, if not millions. He's the voice of the voiceless out there, and he fears nobody. Koigi Wamwere. Let's get straight to the Constitution, Mheshimiwa, because yes, it's been a long time coming. This is a document that a lot of Kenyans are pegging their hopes on. It's being debated by our honorable members here in Parliament. Debate ends probably Wednesday or so. Still a lot of sticking points, contentious issues. Is this a good constitution, in your opinion?
Let me say that first, I've been fighting for a new constitution for a very long time. In fact, we believed that a new constitution would have been our instrument of second liberation. But of course, as you say, it turned out that it was not such an easy thing to have. And I think basically it was because yes, we have had a regime change, but the regimes that have come after the KANU government are no different. It's more or less like a perpetuation of the same regime, more or less. Now, when I look at the new constitution, I like also to look at the process. And I know that we all talk like we really need this constitution very badly. But if so, I ask myself, how come we have not put the right people to write this constitution for us? If you look at the people who have been at the center, who have been at the center of writing and arguing and whatever else about this constitution, you would be right to call them the most corrupt, the worst tribalists, intellectual dictators, and candidates for the Hague. These are the people who are at the center of writing our constitution. There are people that whatever they touch, it rots because of how corrupt they are. Go to that house and tell me who in it is very clean. If you scratched them, not very far into their skin, you find corruption. And these are the people whom we have charged with the responsibility of writing us a constitution. I think we have gone wrong. I have several issues that I have with this constitution. First, I believe that this constitution needs to have some certain things excluded from it. First of all, I believe that this constitution we should be able to remove from it all political expediencies, all political conveniences. It should be a constitution of principles. Principles should actually be at the center of this constitution. It should, from page 1 to the last page, it should be about principles that will, complete our journey to the promised land. Because that's what a constitution is about, a roadmap from where we are to where we want it to go. But if you, in making such a constitution, if you start having to make concessions to all kinds of groups and their interests, you find that what you have is really not, it's more of a manifesto than it is a constitution. Now, from this constitution, we need to deal with the contentious issues must be dealt with. The Kadi chiefs, the Kadi courts, we must be able to deal with the matter of Majimbo, which is already in the constitution. And I believe that we must remove all the contentious issues. Some people are saying we can't remove them. We must either accept the constitution with the contentious issues or allow it to be killed at the referendum. I think it is foolish because we still have time. Yeah. And to the extent that we have time, we should make use of that time to iron out all the differences we have, to see what in the contentious issues we must leave out and what we can include to be able to move forward.
What about something like abortion? Left out, keep it in there, right to life, conception begins at...
I am quite sure that we can find a middle ground. We can even discuss whether some of these issues belong to the Constitution or they should be facilitated later through an act of parliament, which does not put them at the constitutional level, but it still gives them legal protection that they may need.
What about devolution? What about devolution?
Devolution is all right. I have no quarrel with the devolution, but devolution must not be Majimbo. And when you listen to our politicians, what they have put in the new constitution are a Majimbo. And I can tell you as a resident of Rift Valley, anything that is marks of Majimbo is to me deadly. And I cannot accept it under all circumstances. Moi has been my political enemy, but on this issue, we agree.
You agree with Moi for the first time ever?
For the first time ever. When he condemns tribalism, I say you should have, throughout the time you are in the presidency, you should have been condemning tribalism. Throughout the time that you are in the presidency, Mr. Moi, you should have been condemning Majimbo. But now it happens that, he is a late convert. For many years, you can almost accuse him of having planted the tree of Majimbo. But be that as it may, the fact that he has finally come to see what is wrong with them, you welcome that. And you ask others who are still clinging to this sickness of Majimbo to give it up. Because you cannot have Majimbo in the constitution without saying that then the new constitution is what will bury this country once and for all.
Yeah.
Once we allow Majimbo, we will have no Kenya. We will have no nation. And that must be very clear to everyone.
It'll be worse than 07, 08?
And to tell you the truth, the 2008, the 2007 will have been a picnic, as Klegra said. If we allow Majimbo, wait. You will need to book your flight early to take off from this country if you can afford. Majimbo means war. Majimbo means more of what we saw. Majimbo means genocide. Majimbo is what destroyed Rwanda. Majimbo is what destroyed Somalia. Majimbo is what has destroyed Yugoslavia. Majimbo, the ideology of Majimbo is the ideology of genocide. We must not accept it.
And are we that stupid or that idiotic as Kenyans that we would believe our politicians when they tell us Majimbo is the way to go?
Yeah, because we are not even looking at them the way we need to look at. Who are these people? People who have histories of corruption should not even have any business talking about this constitution. People who are confirmed tribalists should not be talking about this constitution. They should be in jail. People who are on their way to The Hague, how do we trust them to write a constitution for us? Ocampo should have taken them yesterday. Yeah. People who are intellectual dictators, who will not listen to your view, who will not listen to my view, who do not want to hear anything but what they believe. These are not the sort of people who should be at the center of writing this constitution. And I think that is the problem that we have with it. Also look at another aspect of it that I'm very uncomfortable with. Probably 80-90% of our people are poor. But this new constitution does not handle the question of poverty. We talk about so many marginalized groups, women, the youth, and many other groups, the disabled. And I have no quarrel with that. But the largest, the biggest marginalized group in this country are the poor people. Yet the new constitution is quiet on that. Look at the new constitution and the problem of corruption. In this country, there is no problem that is greater than corruption. That is the problem of our leadership. A leadership that is corrupt to the core. It is so corrupt that I don't know what else, other than calling them thieves, I don't know what else, but I know they qualify for any other names that refer to thievery and corruption and what.
Kleptocracy, everything. Like Mobutu style.
Precisely. Yet corruption is not properly handled in the new constitution. See where we are coming from. Negative ethnicity that also has destroyed many countries in Africa, that nearly plunged this nation into hell, just 2 years ago. And we don't even have the Commission for National Cohesion in the new constitution. If you look at the constitution of Rwanda, there is nothing more they address more seriously than the problem of negative ethnicity, against something they call the ideology of genocide. Our new constitution is silent on it. I ask myself, why? Look at another problem. We are not yet a nation. Up till now, and the new constitution concedes, we are just a conglomeration of tribes, more or less, of ethnic communities. But we want to be a nation, a patriotic nation like America, that acknowledges diversity, but is also able to say in our diversity, we are still one people. We are a one country. Here, we are even ashamed to call ourselves Kenyans. All the time, we are first Kikuyus, we are first Luos, we are first Luyas, we are first Kalenjins before we are Kenyans. And the Constitution does not address that. All the problems that we are talking about, Jeff, are born out of a system we call crude capitalism. A system we have had since the white man set his foot in this country. It has created more poverty than wealth. We know that it is going to create all these other problems we are talking about. Negative ethnicity, poverty, corruption, name it. They all come from this system we call crude capitalism. capitalism without a human face, a corrupt capitalism. Now, the new constitution should have told us what economic system is likely to solve the problem of poverty, because it is very clear on what system we need to share power. That is the presidential system. But our problem is not just that of the elites sharing power between themselves. It is also a question of how we can liberate our people, our poor people, from their poverty, from all their frustration, from their destitution, from their hopelessness. If we don't do that, although the poor people are still asleep, we shall not have done any good for them. And one day these people are going to get up and call for their own constitution. Jeff, what I say, this new constitution is a Magna Carta for the rich. It's a Magna Carta for the elite. It has nothing to do with the poor of this country. And to the extent that it does not address the problem of the poor people in this country, it is postponing a revolution.
The revolution will not be televised much more. Tell me something. At the end of the day, all those years you were in detention, all those nights you spent in those cells, all the suffering you underwent for this country, is it worth it all these years later, sitting here in this Kenya of today? Has it been worth it? Or do you regret, do you wish you could have gone to Norway and lived happily ever after?
No. I think that it is too bad that we suffered a lot and they never quite won the war. But there is nothing else I could have done in my position. I had to fight. From very early, I identified myself as a patriot. And I wanted to live in this country. And I knew that as a person, I could live for my dreams as an individual. But I could also live for the national dream, which was a dream for freedom.
Mheshimiwa, we'll have to leave it at that for now. Real quick, ICC, do you wish the perpetrators to end up in The Hague? Is that what you want?
If perpetrators are not taken to The Hague, we'll be back to square one.
That's enough for now. Thanks, Mheshimiwa. My goodness. A dream deferred, says Koigi Wamwere, but he says you cannot afford to give up. He cannot afford. He didn't give up. And he says you shouldn't either. Someone has to take up the mantle and continue the struggle, because in his words, a luta continua. The struggle continues. In the meantime, pick up. I Refuse to Die. There's a documentary as well called Refusing to Die, based on the man himself, which we hope to air on K24. It's a good documentary. Shows us where we came from and also where we need to be as a nation. What a guest, what a show, what a week it's turning out to be. The radicals are speaking up without fear or favor. You cannot find these kinds of guests anywhere else but right here on the bench on the award-winning station, K24. Where as always, we are, even times of revolution, all Kenyan.
All the time. This is always the tricky part.
Capital Talk is recorded at the Fairview Hotel, the country hotel in town.